The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the City of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the Mayor's office, 920-967-3608. Contact the City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the City website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his work in the country. Thank you. If we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Eisenach. Here. Alderman Sevenik. Here. Alderman Hammond. Here. Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Tom Grady. Here. Alderman Ted Grady. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Nichols. Here. All are present.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the report of department heads, staff, and consultants. We just have minutes to receive today. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenik.
So it seems kind of odd that we've had 2 weeks since our last meeting. We have no communications. I think we're not getting all the information we should be getting.
I'm not sure what you're looking for, but you did get a communication on your desk,
So,
your envelope that's underneath your computer.
yeah, that's nothing to do with the city.
And there is a communication in the Board of Public Works.
So anyways, with that, I think we need to really start looking at that more serious. I'm sorry I'm wasting our time here, but years ago, and I hate doing this to you guys, but there used to be about 20, 30 communications that would educate the council on things that are happening in the community and around and stuff. And for some reason, those no longer are appearing. But anyways, moving on, Mayor. Thank you. I'd like for us to receive minutes A, B, and C.
So motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There's one nay. Okay. Motion carries. Item G is public comments on any matter of concern to the city. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak, you could come up to the podium. You have 5 minutes to share your thoughts with us. Come on up. If you could press the button on the microphone, please. Thanks.
Testing. Okay. Hi, my name is Sabrina. I live on Doty Island, and I'm here to talk to you about the Racine Street Bridge. I was actually here last year to discuss this with you and with some of our residents on Riverway. Last week, streetlights were placed on the bridge, and in our opinion, the brightness is at a level of intrusion that is unacceptable for a residential area and shoreline. I have provided pictures to the mayor, as have other neighbors, validating our concerns. Downtown Menasha and the bridge used to look and feel warm and inviting, and now it makes it feel less like a charming town and more like a sterile metropolis. We are in a time when there is a focus on the reduction of light pollution. The wildlife has already lost a lot of their shoreline, which I already expressed as a concern of mine. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, ever since this construction has begun, the mitigation in the wildlife in that area has tremendously dropped. And that is one of the things that we do want to focus on in Wisconsin, and we've discussed that at large. The lighting not only impacts us as residents, but the roundabout is almost a danger because at certain angles, the lights can blind drivers to oncoming traffic. You're going from brightness and looking into dull light. And when you're coming out of a roundabout, that can be extremely dangerous because there's also a crosswalk in that intersection. I invite each of you to reference the DNR articles regarding sensible shoreline lighting, as well as the dark skies legislation, the AMA statement regarding bright LED lighting, and the impacts on the mental and physical health of people who are subjected to LED lights and the overall detriment this type of lighting can have on our wildlife. So, council members, on behalf of my family and the residents on Riverway, please, there's a simple solution to get us through this. There is manufacturer-provided shields, and they can direct the light directly at the ground, and then it spreads out on that surface rather than coming into our households. If any of you would like any of these article links or to stop by at night to see the impacts of these LED lights, please let me know. Mayor and Becky both have my email address and phone numbers, so if you guys want to stop by, please do. But I think this would be really important for us to mitigate this prior to installing the other lights that are for aesthetic purposes. Thank you.
And just to let you know, I did talk to DOT this morning about that, so he should be getting back to you as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm very sorry.
Short one.
Nobody wants the microphone, because it's tough. I'm Dick Sturm, 1203 Greenwood Court in Menasha, and I'm here tonight talking and speaking as chairperson of the Park and Rec Board. And the Jefferson Park Master Plan is on your agenda tonight. We spent considerable time several weeks ago on it, and the Park Board spent a lot more time than we thought we would on it as we tried to make our recommendation. We thought, at least I thought, that we would wrap it up in about a half an hour, and we had a direction. I had an idea where we wanted to go. And we went for well over an hour and a half. And we got to a fork in the road where, first of all, I want to say that Director Sackett has an excellent memo. The Park Board minutes provide excellent information. So I'll try not to repeat those, but I'd like to use a little bit of, provide a little bit of the reasoning how we got to a motion that didn't get a second and then changed direction. And it has a little bit to do with politics and what might happen tonight. And I'll take responsibility for maybe pushing that forward in front of the Park Board, because we're trying to figure what can you get, what will get a vote, and what won't get a vote. And that was really the wrong approach for me to take. We needed to get back to the basics of what is the master plan all about. And we asked ourselves at that point, started all over at square one. Does Jefferson Park master plan, or should it include league softball? The answer to that was yes. The next question is, if we provide that opportunity, should it have lighting? The answer to that was yes. Again, with the master plan in mind. And then the third question was, where should it be located? And the location then was reaffirmed that it should be at the far east end of the park, as shown in the drawing since the public participation and all along to go to that. Now, I mentioned a little bit about the political body and what my concern was. My greatest concern was that if we ask for too much, if we ask for the diamond with lighting, option one, when compared to option three, renovation of the current field and we look at the pricing, it's almost, gosh, they're going to go that way. They're going to go to the lesser cost because of the difference. But it's not really apples for apples there either, because there's no lighting included and it's not a complete fence. If you throw that in, we're a little bit closer. But, so that was my concern on the policy on making and the voting that would drive us in that direction, that would leave us with the worst of all options. We went through considerable effort in terminating the Army Reserve lease, the 99-year lease, to increase the space in the park. And now we have the opportunity to finally recapture that segment of the park that was little used and very much separated from it. And we have the opportunity to do it for years to come. We were saddled and confined by the Armory for over 50 years. And now it's gone. And I'm as patriotic as anybody, so we did our due diligence and did it in the right way. But now we have the opportunity to utilize that in a park that's already too small. So the fear that I had in promoting option 4 was a new diamond in a new place would guarantee that we wouldn't suffer that and that there wouldn't be lighting there. But that was not really the way to go. That if we're going to answer those 3 questions, then we really need to ask for lighting. Some concerns were expressed by aldermen and others about the cost and the return on investment and the rate of return. And I guess I would just ask you to consider the return on investment. So many things that we do as the city of Menasha don't have a dollar bottom line for rate for the return on investment. It boils down to that investment. Yeah, there are big numbers there, but it's a quality of life issue. It's a vibrant community that we live in. It's recreational opportunities, and we're just talking about one of them. But as the master plan developed, we looked for those opportunities from the far east end all the way to the west end, and some even in the future. So I don't think it can boil down to dollars and cents for the return on your investment. The return on investment is vibrant and healthy citizens enjoying our community. So I would urge you to vote as the Park and Rec Board recommended, and take a baseball diamond in the location with lighting. So thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council, Mayor, other members. My name is Tom Miller. I live downtown, and this is my hometown, Menasha. I was born here, raised here, left for a little bit, came back 4 years ago. And my reason for coming back was because I really kind of enjoyed the waterfront area of Menasha, and it's a fabulous area. And what I'm here to do today is just to ask the City Council to do what's right for the citizens, the taxpayers of Menasha, whatever that is. You guys have seen all of the reports on what to do about Jefferson Park. I'm not here to talk about the Racine Street road closure, or the bridge closure, or the delay on the bridge, or Taco Street issues. I'm not here to talk about Bonta's overlooking the bombed out Sunoco building. I'm not here to talk about the Bryn Theater looking at the Sunoco building from the other angle with the steam flying into it, and then overlooking Gunderson's with their bombed out parking lot and weed patch that's never fixed. I'm not talking about Gunderson's doors that they keep wide open during the summertime, wired and chained so it stays open because the people are hot and sweaty inside doing their work. I'm not here talking about Essity and their way of keeping the grass clean with paper using the grass cutter. That's a whole nother story. I'm not here for Alliance and their Now they've stopped, but they used to park on 3rd Street until I got St. Mary's involved, and they didn't like St. Mary's saying something. What I am here to say is, you guys are voted by the voters of the city of Menasha. All I want you to do, all I would love you to do, all I desire you to do is make the right decision about what to do about Jefferson Park. There's lots of yays and nays about whether or not we need a softball park lighted in a location that has an awful lot of lake flies, river flies, and mosquitoes during the summertime. I'm not a softball player, but you guys have to make a decision, and we have to move on from there because that park is underutilized. It's a wonderful location, waterfront property that needs to be done and done properly. And that's all I ask. I'm not going to give you an opinion as to which way it should go because I don't live there. But I do know that there's an awful lot of people around the Jefferson Park area that would love to get an idea of what you all are going to do and how you're going to do it and when are you going to do it. And I wish you luck.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else wish to speak this evening?
Hi, my name is Eric Schaefer. I'm owner of Foxway Athletics. We have run the adult program, softball program here in Menasha for about 5 or so years. When visiting with the Parks Department last week, I got the impression that a lot of the opinions were going to be based upon the enrollment that we currently have. One thing that I'd like to stress is that through no fault of anybody's, we have really been handicapped with that program for many years. We went from being asked when we were brought in to cut back on teams, which was a difficult transition for us to do, being told that we were going to eventually have one field. We had been utilizing multiple fields up until the west field got taken out. Then we went to using the south field and the light stopped working, so we had to cut back teams again. We really haven't been given the tools to let that program thrive. And I feel it's a mistake to, one, cancel the program altogether and not put fields in. Certainly putting fields in without lights is unreasonable because you don't have an evening program there. The opportunity for that program to succeed is there if you give us the right tools. But again, we haven't been given those. And what was a program 3 years ago that had 25 or 26 teams has now been cut down to only 8 teams in the evening. And again, that's the best that we can run on one field. So I ask you consider that the program and the people who are part of it want it to succeed, and we have the tools to do that. But we need to be given something back to make that happen. And right now, with the fields the way they are, we just haven't been given that. I mean, sadly, those fields are some of the worst fields in the Fox Valley. And teams have gone elsewhere. They've gone places where it's more safe for them to play. They've gone places where they have a little bit more safe or more enjoyable experience. And I really feel that if you give us opportunity to give us a better field, that the program can definitely thrive. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra DeBille Taylor, 545 Broad Street. Just to change gear quickly, a few questions. Number one was the check register on page 6, or combine page 6, just because of the name. Beyond Fig Leaves, Home Decor, $968 for banners. I'm just really curious what that was all about. Then, there's also, under the action items, the opportunity to list the foreclosed properties from Winnebago County, and I agree with the listing, and I agree with what Sam put together as far as the contingencies. My only question was the realtor is out of Oshkosh, and why that individual was chosen versus someone local that knows the neighborhood better. I did want to bring up really quickly, in a previous council packet, I think it might have been last week, there was a communication regarding bird scooters and all the wonderful things that they provided and the eco-friendly and the carbon footprint. There was nothing in there as far as how much revenue the city received from them. There was nothing in there regarding how many complaints were made to the city, how many complaints were made to bird scooters, if there were any accidents. It was just all the fluff. none of the facts. So I would appreciate before the council makes a decision whether or not to reinstate that, to get some more information. Then I do want to comment on the diamonds at Jefferson Park. Perhaps I'm just old-fashioned, but to me, when I think of Jefferson Park, I think the number one reason people go to Jefferson Park is the water. You could really have a softball diamond in any field. People don't really go there for the softball diamond, they go there for the water. And as an older person, I haven't played softball for probably 30, 40 years. To me, it's to look at the water, the trees. I mean, you look at Riverside Park in Neenah, there's always people there, and there's no softball diamonds. What concerns me with this proposal is that the league is no longer run by the city, but by a private firm. That, to me, is we're privatizing our parks, and I'm very concerned about that. Looking at their website briefly tonight, which had last year's information, they charge each team a fee, $325. It may be different now. So is 6 teams on men's league, 7 co-ed teams, that's over $5,000 that they're taking in. Now, we still are providing the upkeep of the field. I believe we have to provide the umpires and other staffing. So are we building this for private enterprise so that they can expand their private business? I'm very concerned about that. Or are we actually looking at building this for our residents to enjoy? One thing that hasn't been brought up, and I do quickly want to echo what the lady said from Riverway, because I live on the north side of the bridge on Broad Street, and the roundabout lights and the recently installed lights, Cobra lights on the bridge are blinding the neighbors on the north side also. And I'm concerned about what happens when the rest of the lights get installed. And I live on the end of the block, and they're shining in my bedroom windows, bright. So have any of this lighting that's being proposed been considered for the residents of 3rd Street? Because if you were to put a softball diamond in Smith Park, I guarantee you're going to hear about it, because the lights are extremely bright. And in the summertime, when these leagues are being played, it's light till 9 o'clock. So to me, I think that's one big disagreement I have with the park board. Their first question that they answered was, yes, we need league softball. My opinion is, no, we don't need league softball anymore. The park, there's so many things in that park. I feel like it's being crammed with so many activities that people just can't go there and enjoy the scenery and enjoy a relaxing area. We have a pool there, we have the fire pits there, we have the pavilions there, we have the fishing there. Do we really need to also cram in softball diamonds? So I think the first question is, that's where we have a disagreement. Do we need it or don't we need it? My opinion, the park board's opinion is they need it. My opinion is, I think softball has overrun its time, and we are basically supplementing a private enterprise to do this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Collar. I live in Menasha. I play softball at Jefferson Park, 208 Milwaukee. I think it would be completely detrimental to so many of the youth that do play down there. Me, I'm an old person down there, but there are so many young players that come down there just to play ball and to have time with their friends, have time with other teams, and make new friends. I believe that it is a necessary thing for people to do something other than the alternatives, to get out and do something that's recreational and yet not busting the budget. We pay for the umpires out of our money each week. So that's not something against the city of Menasha. And I think voting option 2 would be the best bet, because there's a lot of teams that like playing there. There's 7 on Sunday, 8 on Thursday, and it's dwindling because of the resources failing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening? I'm running out of paper.
Eli Wickman, 710th Street. So in my line of work, I'm a handyman. I often have to deal with people who have the option to do the cheap thing first and choose not to do that. And then it costs them way more money later. I have a client who, about a year ago, they hired me to paint over some water damaged spots on some drywall. Some leaks got in and it was just leaking. I warned them up front. I'm like, I can paint over this, or I can check to see if it's rotted out. They're like, no, it's fine. Just paint over it. Totally okay. About a week ago, they called me back. Turns out a piece of trim was bending. Okay, take it off. There was a 4-inch mushroom growing out of that trim because everything behind it was water damaged. And they could have paid me, instead of having to pay me twice to paint and then once to do drywall, they could have just done it all up front, spent a little more right away, and saved a lot of money later after, paint's been going up in price, supplies are going up in price. Have you seen drywall recently? It's expensive. So I did a little digging. Since our first estimate that we presented you before that 4-hour knockout, drag-out fight we had with the Parks Board and City Council, lights themselves went up about 30% since the last estimate that we gave you. And just like everything, it's going up in price. The lights that we have in Jefferson Park right now are expected to last 1 to 2 years. How much do you think they're going to be in 2 years if you don't do them now? The estimate that we have presented to you is this year's estimate, not last year's, not what it's going to be. This year's. This is the chance to do it smart the first time rather than wait until, let's just kick this down the road and add it. We took your advice. We're not proposing, our recommendation is not for 2 fields. That's $500,000. We cut off $250,000 right around there to do the 1 field and to do it correctly. So that's the other thing I tell my clients is you can't polish a turd. We have a diamond that a lot of players say is unsafe because it's not tournament legal, where if you hit a 92-mile-an-hour ball at someone, that's about 7 less feet you have to dodge that. Nobody wants to use it. If you put up a diamond that does not have lights, no one's going to use it, just like no one's using it now because it's not safe. So again, you have the option to spend a little more money up front to save a lot of money later by doing it correctly. So again, I'm going with the Park Board's recommendation. We know we have interest. We can get a full league going. We had the gentleman from the softball leagues tell us that. He presented, they just need a place to play. Appleton's full, Oshkosh is full, Nina's full. They have full leagues. We don't, because we don't have a great place to play. So, just to reiterate, we can do it right the first time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening?
Tom Marshall, 1166 Fieldview Drive in Menasha. I've been a resident for roughly 20 years, grew up in Nina, but I'm on the park board with these folks and I have the same sentiment, option 1. And I just, right now, kind of looking at it, what I see is all you folks in like doctor's coats, got your stethoscope and so on. And what I'm seeing is you guys are the doctors and there is a pulse over there. Let's just give it a heartbeat and get Jefferson Park going where it should be. Thank you much.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else?
I agree with everything Tom Miller said. Thank you.
That's it. You don't get any more now.
James Taylor, 340 Broad Street. thank you for all spending the time and the park board on this subject for the past 5 years. We're all passionate about Jefferson Park, and change is inevitable. And one thing Menasha has is one of the nicest sports complexes in the valley, and that's Coslow Park. We have a professional hardball stadium out there, and we have a professional softball stadium out there. And I think we're misdirecting people to Jefferson Park rather than to our sports complex at Coslow Park. I attended a couple of the park board meetings and the joint meeting with the council and park board. And two things I heard in there, I took a lot of notes, and one is we want people in our park. And we have 8 baseball diamonds in this community right now, 8 softball diamonds. And do we really need to take up Jefferson Park with this baseball diamond? And when we have this beautiful sports complex? And another thing I heard at the park board meeting, people want to have beer, okay? Coslow Park has a beer license. You can drink beer there. So that takes it out of the Jefferson Park beer. You can have it at Coslow Park. Put this in our sports complex, showcase our city. I look at Jefferson Park as kind of, it's had constraints. You got a road through the middle, which is going to go away, great. You have all these fences that take up half the park almost with the baseball diamonds. We're going to lose one, that's good. I've been asked to have a car show during Jazz Fest weekend. You got all the fences, all the baseball diamonds, it's constrained. Somebody else brought up, Nina has the beautiful Rocket children's area. We're going to have the Lighthouse children area. We have a pavilion. Riverside Park has a pavilion. And what do they have? The waterfront and trees. It's almost a forest and open spaces. And that's all we need on Jefferson Park. We don't need to have these sport complexes that take up so much of our real estate down there. I think back years ago, my family, a lot of other families used to do a lot of kite flying down there by the lake because there's always a breeze. And that's before the baseball diamonds were there. And we all know when we were kids, every kid had a colored shirt on, wore it all summer long. It was a park-sponsored baseball for the youth. They had t-ball, they had junior baseball, and then of course growing up to that would be the boys sports complex, which had Little League, Babe Ruth, and then of course Menasha always had professional baseball and Legion ball. And I think back growing up with every major company in the city sponsored teams with those colored shirts everybody had. If it was Central Paper, Bata, Gilbert Paper, Wisconsin Tissue Mills, and it was a kind of a community thing, and to have that type of baseball in our community. Being a Catholic community, I think all the guys took their first communion money or their birthday money, and they bought a baseball glove. And nowadays, I think with kids with their first communion money or their birthday money, they're buying electronics. There's a paradigm shift that has happened. And businesses respond to paradigm shifts. And I think Menasha has an opportunity here to adjust to a paradigm shift that has happened. We know that softball is on a downturn. Let's enhance our sports complex at Coslow Park, and let's give the community more open space at Jefferson Park and make it more of an inviting park for people. And also, at 5:30, I got a call from my friend from Annapolis, Maryland, and I said to him, I got to be at a meeting at 6, so we cut it short. But he's the chairman of the Annapolis pickleball club. They have, in 4 parks, they have 2,000 members. From sunrise to sunset, the park is full of people playing pickleball. And it's a paradigm shift that's happened, okay? And we should be adjusting to that. And he said they just had a tournament with their gymnasiums in the city. It was called Midnight Madness, where they had tournaments from 8 o'clock at night till midnight. And with over 2,000 members, the baby boomers want it. They will be in the park from sunrise to sunset, and you're going to get another 20, 30 years out of the baby boomers, and they're not going to play softball anymore because of the constraints of their bodies, and the young people are going to play with their electronics. So it's a tough decision on your part, but we all agree what we're doing in Jefferson Park is fantastic. It's great for the community. The only thing we're missing is a covered bridge, so we'll work on that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I think we got everyone.
Thanks, Stan, I'm good.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for the common council minutes? Alderman Sevenick?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You don't want me to take one and two?
If you want to do it together, but
So anyways, thank you again, Mayor. At this time, I'd like for us to approve the minutes of the Common Council of 1/3/23.
so motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is the Park and Rec recommendation. Do we have a motion? Alderman Sevenick? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Grady.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. We had good debate, good talks from the gallery. Thanks for coming and supporting, or not supporting, the Jefferson Park Vision Plan. But at this time, I'm going to make the recommendation, and that is the motion to approve the Jefferson Park Vision Plan as presented with the modification to the plan to only construct one newly located softball diamond with lights, which is option 1, as recommended by the Park Board.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Nichols. Discussion, Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you. So I'm glad to hear that in the Park Board, your first discussion was, do we need a softball program in the city of Menasha? And that tells me a lot. I've lived here my entire life, and softball at Jefferson Park has always been an important program. There's even been tournaments there, which I don't think by building one diamond, you'd be able to have a tournament. It's sad to see that we've lost one diamond already, and we're going to take another diamond away. I've kind of done a 360 on this issue. I've really listened to what the Park Board had to say. Well, 180 then, Randy, sorry. Well, maybe, but maybe, Randy, this is the position I took from the beginning and then changed my mind and came back to it. All right. And actually, there is actually a lot of reality to that, because, Randy, you know it. Randy informed me, because the original plan was to build 2 diamonds. And so every time I saw the sheet, I saw 2 diamonds and didn't really look close enough to realize that, no, we're only building 1 diamond. So I had a long conversation, not long, but with Megan today, and she gave me this nice sheet to help me out a little bit. And I know Alderman Taylor used to put on the Otto Grunski Festival down there, and there was always a wonderful women's tournament that was down there that really drew a lot of people. And so then there's, he also raised a good point. Are today's kids going to be playing softball in the future? I was actually quite surprised this summer when I went by to see people playing softball, because I thought it was completely dead. And here's some of the other reasons why. We put a lot of money in at Kozlo, only to find out that Menasha High is not going to be using that anymore. Also, the American Legion, which has had tournaments out there and their baseball program out there for as long as I can remember, will no longer be playing baseball. Is baseball dead? Not when I watch the news. Apparently it's alive and well, but is it dead between people like me and others in our community that play local sports? So I'm glad they made that decision. They're saying, hey, we need one. Okay. I accept that. Then the next big issue is lights. Are lights needed? And that's a tough issue because that's really one of the biggest price tags. Do we have a drawing, clerk? Could you bring up the drawing of the park plan with the diamonds if possible? Were you able to do that? Yeah, I know, but can we do it so that everyone can see it? Okay, thank you. And then I'll continue with my talk, because what I'd like to know and see is if we're putting in the lights, where exactly are those lights going to be placed? Because if we're going to build a new diamond in the future, I hopefully will be able to use those same poles and everything. So we're not building two sets of lights or whatever. And I need to see where they are, because usually the lights are on the back of the diamond, and I know it said somewhere in here that they would be off of first base or something like that. So I need to see it physically, so.
So Megan, can you point for us? I don't know if you can come up and kind of show us where those are.
The proposed lighting would just be on the first and third base sideline, so it's meant to give still full coverage of the diamonds for a recreational program. If we were running a competitive collegiate program or something, those type of lights would not be sufficient, but because it's a recreational program, it will still illuminate both diamonds sufficiently. So they would be placed, if you construct two new diamonds, they would be again the third base of this. This is the one diamond on the far east side, so it would be the first base sideline here, and the first base sideline here, so you can see poles. And then if we would construct this second diamond, you would utilize these poles that are on this first base sideline to place lighting that would illuminate the other diamond. So you're saving some of that initial infrastructure cost because you're utilizing those same poles. You would have to put poles then on this first base sideline on that second diamond.
Okay, thank you.
So you would have outfield lighting here, and when we had talked about this initial design out here, this had been talked about as a possible removable fence, or you could not place a fence up there. That's one reason we opted not to put there, because it wouldn't make sense to have a removable fence or no fence there if you're going to put holes in there, and that's create that kind of blockage there.
Okay, thank you. That helps, because that's what I thought. I'd hate, because, you know, a lot of the ball diamonds, you see them on the far end shooting over, and if we were putting them in the back of the ball diamonds, we'd have to build another set of lights. So I just wanted to be 100% on that.
That,
What's that?
There we go.
Is that me?
no, that was me.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the reasons that we opted to go with that, to be as efficient as possible with the design of these diamonds, to minimize some of those costs that would be, you know, duplicated if you went with two diamonds. So Musco Lighting is a popular lighting company here within the state, and like I said, because we're using these for recreational purposes, you can use this design of lighting.
Okay, thank you. Again, Alderman Taylor had brought up some important issues that I think Alderman Rapella had talked about, and Ted, and that years ago, when I was a kid, there were hundreds and hundreds of kids playing T-League and, was it called minor league?
Yes.
And coincidentally,
Won the championship.
Ted, myself, and Randy were on the championship team.
That's it, just you and me.
No, Ted was too. I have the picture. Remember, I brought it in? So, anyways.
Point of order.
Remember Ted said, well, that's because I was on the team. But anyways, if we're going to spend this kind of money, and I'm not talking about the lights, but the diamond, that we start taking that more serious, that we start implementing a program where we get more kids involved in the baseball programs. Because it starts from the little kids and it works its way up eventually, and that's why the sport has died. Here's a zinger that the gentlemen in the back are probably not going to be happy about. And this is something that I talked to Megan about today. It really bothers me that we're spending all this money so that a private business can come in and run a program and make a profit. They're not building a ball diamond. They're not paying for the lights. They're not cutting the grass. They're not maintaining the ball diamond. And there's a possibility they may even sell in a future concession stand and make even more of a profit. I would love that for myself. You want to build me a $300,000 facility? I could, Eli, maybe he might like a nice new facility too, and then you come and you maintain our building and cut our grass and pay no taxes. That's what I see here. So that, if you guys remember at our last council meeting, I had said, Megan, are you prepared to run a softball program in this city? Because if you're not, we're not doing this. And her answer was, yes, we are ready to run a program if we have to. And if she's true to her word, that's where I come in with the 360, because it was the position I had originally, that we should do this, but not for a private organization. And then a lot of people are talking about the big cost. It's a big cost. We also have to thank our president providing us money for this facility. It really helps the taxpayers on this. Taxpayers will eventually be footing the bill for maintenance and, the electric bills and all those kinds of issues. But let's not be fooled that the ball diamond is only somewhere between $300 and a $500,000 project, because that doesn't include the concession building. And when that comes into possibility, which I think is really needed because it's going to be a multi-use building. It's going to have the bathroom facilities, not just for the softball teams, but also for the people who fish, instead of having that porta potty that's out there, which is ridiculous. And it's also going to have storage for the Parks Department, and then a concession area. And you're looking at another $500,000. So altogether, you're probably looking at about $1 million alone for this. So my point is, if we're going to spend that kind of money, we better be able to run it efficiently and run it seriously. I know it's simple for a staff person to just hire someone to do their work and have, and I think that's kind of what happened. And that's why we ended up having fewer teams and all that. I would almost go a little further. And I think maybe the park board struggled with this. I'm wondering if the park board really wanted to build both diamonds. And if that's the case, I think that's, I saw everyone shake their head except for Ted. So I would think that, like Eli was talking about, holding off on things and then waiting, and then they becoming more expensive down the line. I can't even imagine what a second ballpark would end up costing us if we decide to do that in the future. And I'll tell you right now, I don't think we're ever going to do it in the future. And if this is to succeed, you're going to need 2 ball diamonds, not 1. Because if you're ever going to have some kind of a tournament, even if it's just like we had at Otto Grunsky, a small women's tournament that brought in lots of people, I think you need 2 ball diamonds. So that's the position I've taken. So I have done a 180. I think we should go the whole route. If I have the belief that our staff is going to run this the way it should be run, and not just for softball, but for T-League and for tournaments and for minor league, and get the kids involved. I see there's a number of other lights on. I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to speak, but I wanted to share the park board, my position, and see where we go from there. I know that at least one alderman has contacted me and has very serious views, and he's probably the most expert in this area because he was an umpire for, what did you say, 23 years? 24 years. So thanks for listening, and I hope what I had to say here doesn't fall on deaf ears, and that people take this serious, because we're talking about some serious dollars.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that at the beginning, the staff recommended number 4. The Park and Rec Department board recommended number 1. My experience is 24 years umpiring Appleton, Neenah, and Menasha. So from 1990 to about 2016, missed a couple years in there, but I've noticed that softball has been declining in the valley. Neenah doesn't have softball anymore. Appleton turned to private. Eric, you can probably tell me, around 2005, you maybe started over in Appleton. That's when Lee Stahl was let go at some point. Menasha used to have 5 nights of softball. Now we're down to just Sunday and Thursday nights. The income that we generated from softball, according to Megan, was $455 in 2020, $595 in 2021, and $525 in 2022. When I called Appleton, they said Eric Schaefer has a agreement for $6,000. Granted, he uses the 4 diamonds, and I believe, Eric, do you run the concession stand there?
I do.
You do. That's what happened. Well, I realized that in about 205 or something, they turned it over.
This is our 4th year in Appleton.
Okay, well, they must have had somebody else previous to you.
They did.
They did, okay. So $6,000, is that correct?
I can't confirm that. We just took a 5-year agreement.
Okay.
Randy, this is a discussion amongst the council members.
Excellent. So, well, he's here, so it's important. Increase, so $6,000 is what the Appleton told me. So I'm hoping that somehow we can increase it to $1,500 at some point if we do consider to keep that agreement going. Safety, Eric mentioned in one of the writings, safety concerns. Still 46 feet, 60 feet base pass. Sometimes they recommend 65. I think Appleton still has 60 in there. They're still good to go. Pitching and base pass are fine. Outfield lights. Gosh, I wish Mr. Tungate would have replaced those outfield lights probably 20 years ago. They've been out of date. Ted can confirm that there's a heck of a lot of dark dead spots in the outfield. Right, Ted? I believe so. So, and the outfield fence does need those yellow pads. Those are lacking as well. So those are probably the 2 big things that are concerned with the East softball diamond in Menasha, the Kenny Holmes softball diamond. Another thing that I'm a little concerned about, we are doing this to, Stan had kind of mentioned this as far as a private industry or a private entity doing this. And I just, want to make sure, we don't really have an agreement with him as far as the $1,500. And I wish we would have an agreement prior, rather than us voting to fix the diamond up and then we negotiate with him. Well, is it 600 that we're going to get from you for a year? Is it 800? Is it 1,500? I know I talked to Dick Sturm, and he would love to have it as a $1,500 request. So I'm kudos with Dick on that one. So that's a good choice. So I'd like to have something in writing, something like that, okay? If Menasha chooses to run a softball program, it died relatively in 2017. And the reason, and I talked to Megan today, low numbers of umpires and scorekeepers was one of the main big reasons. Sunday co-ed was going and Thursday men, but we even used 2 diamonds on Thursday. But trouble is, we couldn't find umpires and scorekeepers. Many times one umpire had to do bases and the plate and keep score. And the former rec director didn't have a problem with that, because that was money he didn't have to pay out to those people. So it kind of worked out well if one person could do 3 jobs. Didn't get paid for it, but. So I have a concern that the Park and Rec would have issues finding competent officials. You just can't grab kids from the lifeguard from the pool or something to think that they can umpire a softball. It's not that easy, especially when guys get upset because you made a bad call. They even screw up in the major leagues. That's where they're going to cameras at some point. The lighting issue, lighting or no lighting. I umpired on the South Diamond, which is the middle diamond, the Butzfensky Diamond, as people like to refer it to. Hate to get rid of those names. 5:30 game to 6:30, 6:30 to 7:30. We played with no lights, no problem, 2 games. 7:30 to 8:30, 8:30 to 9:30 was on the East Diamond, as far as they had 4 games. Those 2 games had to have the lights, and when I umpired that diamond, probably I turned them on at 7:30. They weren't needed. Roughly around 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:15, they were needed, and you didn't want to give one team the advantage of having the lights on versus not having the lights on. So many times I turned them on at the start of the game just to make it fair for both teams. So that's an issue. Scoreboard, and I just asked Alderman Grady, I said, where's the scoreboard listed on any of this stuff? That was not mentioned in any of the cost breakdown. The current scoreboard they have has been in disrepair, and that's been in disrepair for probably the last 20 years. Yeah, we'll fix it next year. Yeah, we'll fix the lights next year. Yeah, well, that never got fixed. Not Megan's fault. But the scoreboard needs to be put in there somewhere. I don't see that at all in any of the money, the figures that are given. Also, has anybody taken into account the diamond where the home plate is, as far as the sunlight in the left fielder's and center fielder's eyes? The sun is eyes going down between 7 and 8, and you're going to have a huge sun in the left fielder's eyes. And I know you talk about safety, and I know that was when it was over on the west diamond over by Jefferson School, the batters had the sun in their eyes for much of the game because of the sun being in the right field. So has that been considered as far as where you're putting home plate? I don't know if that's ever been mentioned. So those are all the concerns I have. It is a tough choice. I realize, and I think I shared this with the mayor, the number of players that are playing baseball and softball at youth sports. And those numbers are, according to the person I talked to, Bob, he was glad. He was, holy cow, we got lots of kids. I said, well, Bob, what age group? Well, we start them at age 3, and then we go up to age 18. I go, Bob, do you realize long time ago, I know people hate talking about history, we had 180 kids playing Little League, 9 through 12, and then 90 kids playing Babe Ruth, 13 to 15-year-olds. And those are the people that ended up like Ted playing softball once they got older. Now, they're struggling with their numbers. On their 9 and 10 year tournament team, or 9 and 10 year, they only have enough for 11 or 12 kids on one team, and it's a traveling team. They don't play like nightly, like we played 2 nights a week for Little League, Ted and I did. They don't have the numbers. So I'm kind of concerned that the numbers are low in the little kids, and now we're going to transfer that, and we're going to build the diamond. I wish the diamond was reconfigured with new lights and with those pads 15 years ago. That was mentioned to the previous park director, but that was never brought up and never done. And so now we're fixing this as softball was doing well, and we didn't fix anything. And now softball's taking a dip, a dive. Nina doesn't even have softball anymore. Kekaunik's got it 3 nights. Kimberly's got it 1 night. Combined Locks got it 1 night. Little Chute's got it 1 night. Appleton used to have all 6 diamonds played Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday was makeup days for rain. So they had it 5 nights a week. 6 diamonds were played, 5 games a night. And so it was rocking. But I don't see that right now. I see it going down. Eric's doing his best to keep softball alive, but it's still dwindling. So I'm at a conundrum. Do we get the lights, which is a great cost, $180,000? I don't know what softball is going to be like in 5 years. May not be very much. Megan may end up running it at some point. Who knows how long Eric's going to run it? But who knows if we can even have a couple nights of softball. Here we sit with a diamond with lights and really not being used. So I'm still on the fence here. I do know that staff recommended number 4, which I thought that was interesting. Park and Rec recommended number 1. I can see number 3 is not doable, not fixing up the diamond where it is. I understand that. That's not a moot point for me. The second choice, having a second diamond built. And I know, obviously, anything built yesterday is cheaper than it was today. You look at the price of eggs. So buy your eggs yesterday rather than today. So go out and buy your eggs tonight. There'll be more tomorrow. So you can say that with a lot of things. But so I'm still on the fence between 4 and 1. It could be a flip of a coin. But that's where I'm sitting. Thank you very much for being a good audience. Oh, okay, so it wasn't your great eyesight. Okay, all right. All right, thank you. Go, Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. I look at the park as having amenities, and it's important. We had a basketball court put on the east end, or the west end of the park, and they did a beautiful job with that. It could have been just a gravel driveway with a couple hoops in it, but they went all out. They did a beautiful job with the surface, everything. I mean, it's there. It's not utilized that often, but that may change when the playground is put in. I see the importance of moving the ball diamond and making it up to date, or whatever you want to say, for the teams. I'm not a sports person, so none of this really is that urgent for my concern. But I think we're selling our public short. We don't have a lot of money for this park. And we're going to, the things in this park that are used are the pavilion, the road, and the paths. And everyone's complaining about, oh, the cost of this, the cost of that, and we haven't even addressed what's going on where the public really is, and their issues, and what brings people to the park. The people aren't coming to Jefferson Park for softball. I mean, it's fine, it's beautiful, whatever, but for 2 nights a week, I can't see putting in $500,000. And I don't think the league, or whatever you want to call it, will grow. I just am kind of skeptic with that whole thing. So I don't want to, we haven't even addressed, we've got numbers for the pavilion, we've got numbers for the road, we have numbers for the path, and everyone's complaining about, oh, the lights went up. But what is the cost of the road now? What's the cost of the path? What's the cost for doing the pavilion? No one's addressing the things the public really uses in that park. I live by Jefferson Park. I see the baseball games go on Thursday night and Sunday night. And it's fine. I feel they can play their games maybe 3 nights a week. I'm not even excited about the idea of the lights. If they played earlier, maybe they would be done by the time. Half the time the lights are on till 11 o'clock because they're sitting there drinking beer. So my concern, I'm all for the diamond being moved and redone, but I'm still having a hard time with the lights if it's going to cut into other entities what the public really uses. Thank you.
Alderman Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to state that throughout this process, I've tried to take an approach with this really objective, because I'm not a big sports person, so it doesn't directly impact me personally, but I don't want to approach things as a member of council because of that. What's best for our community? What can the most people access? And I just want to really reiterate, I really appreciate all the effort that's been put in by the park board and staff, and I think there's a lot of good conversations that were had at our last meeting, though very long, very drug out over those 3 hours. And with that being said, the thing I've struggled with the most throughout this process is comparing to what this private entity is doing with softball and these softball leagues. I don't think we should be basing our decisions on what the future of a sport looks like based off of them. Do they know more than what's going on than I do? Yes, but I really am encouraged by the things that I see Megan doing with Park and Rec. I am encouraged by the new events that are being created, the new programs, and I'd love to see Jefferson Park become something that has numerous amenities that folks can create more programs with and get more kids involved and more demographics within our community. And with that being said, when we had our meeting to discuss Jefferson Park, there is a discussion about different rooms within the park and the flow of it and how we maximize the most with the park. I think it's a really strategic move to move it to that further end of the park. And I do support lights, and I even want to echo a little bit of what the alderman from the 3rd district said, that I see a point to potentially putting the second one in there because of the cost. And I really do believe that it would be in the best interest of the city to have us have more sports run through the Park and Rec department, whether that's a softball league. And I also remember, Megan, if that's correct, you said kickball could be something we could also utilize with that space. With my rambling, I just want us to utilize this park space to the best that we possibly can. I want us to create the most opportunity for people that we possibly can. Can't thank enough for the president for passing this historic legislation that's really giving communities power to put in the infrastructure and the possibilities and dreams to come true, to do projects that are going to be impactful for generations to come. So with all that being said, I really do think there is a necessity to putting this diamond in with the lights. I would even argue with the second one, because if we're going to do it right, let's do it right the first time. Let's not push this off and hope, the council 10 years from now makes a different decision. And I'm not here to predict what the future of a sport looks like, because I'm not directly involved with it. I don't know that much about it. But what I am here to advocate for is making the most of this opportunity that we have and make Jefferson Park the best that it can be.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to beat a horse here. This is all good topics, all good concerns. The main thing I'll be really brief here. Eric did show up at our last Park and Rec Board meeting, and I did relay my sentiments, and so did the Park Board, of how cheap he is getting these diamonds. And he agreed that we could pass some more dollars on to him. So that's a thing that, with Megan and Chairman Sturm, we're going to look at those costs and really address what we should be charging this private entity if this is going to happen. Because, and he was optimistic and said, yeah, I could pass more money on, so that was good. The other thing I mentioned, I grew up playing softball also, and then Alderman Sevenik, I ran tournaments down at Jefferson Park on just that one diamond. We did for sports graphics many years. It's hard if it rains or something, but it did work, so it's something that can be done. I don't know how much tournaments are happy nowadays. And the other thing I just want to mention, the movement of the diamond over to where the armory was, that's a big thing, open up the green space for other things. Future development of another diamond could possibly happen if things change in the next 5-10 years. But I think option one is the best option for now. And Megan did mention, as Alderman Hammond mentioned, there's kickball programs, there's youth programs, there's other things that she is going to initiate and do in that space. So there's other options out there, but I just want to reiterate on some of those things. Thank you.
Alderman Rapella.
Thank you. Just to thank you very much, Mayor. Two concerns. Megan, if you would, I noticed, and I had Ted look too, I didn't notice a scoreboard in any of the budget money concerns. So is there any thought of a new scoreboard or something for that since it wasn't listed?
Yeah, it should be wrapped up in that price. It maybe wasn't individually listed, but yes, it's meant to have a scoreboard as well.
Okay, all right. And the second thing, I just off of what Ted, which I thought would be a decent idea, is having kickball games at night, utilizing the lights. So not have them after, in the afternoons or even at 5 or 6 o'clock. Utilize the lights after 8 o'clock.
Correct.
So,
There's different uses that you can utilize for these diamonds, and we've talked about kickball in the past. I have seen youth flag football on the outfield in the fall, under the lights, because then you're able to run those sort of things, say on a weekday evening, and you have those areas lit. So there are different things that you can do. We have focused a lot of the conversation in the past on adult softball. That has been a primary use over the years. But that's certainly not the only use that it's even getting now, and it certainly doesn't have to be the only use moving forward.
Well, no, because his league runs 12 weeks. So that puts you first week of May all the way to about the second or third week of August, and then it's shut down. So, and those lights don't go away. They're still there in August and, September. So that could be utilized. Plus, if he only uses it twice a week, Sundays and Thursdays, you got Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights that you can use it for recreation activities.
Correct. That's the current schedule right now. I think the hope with it was addressed by the public is that really the resources and the tools and the facilities haven't been there. We've lost some of our users to other communities because they have upgraded their facilities. When you live in such a small area like the Fox Valley, and those resources are so easily accessible in other communities, if we're not upgrading and providing that same level of facility, it's easy to go and access that someplace else. And so for us to stay relevant and stay competitive and attract more teams or attract more activities, we have to upgrade those facilities and try and maintain those going forward. So it's important for us, and we've lost some of that in the past because of the lack of maintenance and lack of staying relevant with those.
As I had mentioned previously with the lights and the scoreboard. Definitely. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for being good listeners again.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the Park Board for the very deliberative process that you moved through to come to your recommendation. It is rare. I've been up here for 10 years, and I can't recall very many instances, if any, where a different decision is made from that, or a decision is made that's different from the recommendation provided. And I really appreciate how the memo from Director Sackett lays out how you came to that decision, because I think that process and us understanding that process is really important to this decision tonight. So thank you to the Park Board, and thank you to Director Sackett for the memo that that provides great explanation for the rationale that the park board came up with in coming up with their recommendation. I think many of the questions this evening, as I've been listening, are really great questions for the design phase of a project. And I think we have to stay focused on the fact that what's being asked of us tonight is to approve a master plan for Jefferson Park. And that process really started in 2017 when this body made the decision to purchase the Armory property and demolish it. That property became part of the park. And we have to remember that the park is currently it was designed with that building in the middle of it. As it stands today, it was designed and it functions as if that building is still there. And so the vision began really in 2017 when the city purchased the Armory and demolished it. So I just really encourage us to stay focused on the goal this evening, and that is approving the master plan. And the park board unanimously agrees that softball should be a recreational opportunity that is provided in Jefferson Park, that is provided for all in Menasha and beyond, whether it's a league or families or kids simply looking to organize a game of pickup whenever they want to. And those things still happen. You might not see them, but they do. And so the park board really believes that opportunity should be there. Just speaking to the process for a little bit, Director Sackett, we talked about this a little bit at the joint meeting. Once the master plan is approved, there was conversation about taking things out for bids right away. So what does that process look like once the master plan is approved?
Next, we'll move more into the design and engineering phase to get some of those details worked out. So I'll work with our engineering staff as well as our consultant to fine-tune some of those details and lay out that timeline of what makes sense as far as implementation, and it may happen in phases so that we can, although we're trying to, accomplish 3 phases at one time, we want to be cognizant of disrupting as much, or as little, I should say, as we can by still leaving things as accessible as they can without interrupting, say, the season of softball or making sure that the new diamond would be prepared in time for the next season. So things may happen in phases as we're working even through the phases.
But essentially, and once that process is completed, all of the bids come back to Common Council for approval.
Correct.
At that point.
Correct. So they would see a final bid, and we are, before we would even go to bid, there has been a discussion of a formal presentation happening at the council level so that you guys have a picture of what is going to be happening. So the design aspect and the engineering aspect will happen at the park board level, but a presentation to the Common Council. So you have a picture in your mind of what is being then pushed out for bid.
Okay, and tonight's task is to approve the master plan, which is step 1 of everything and allows the bids to go out and the design process to begin.
Correct, right. We need this formal approval process so that we can take that next step into design and engineering, because right now, until we receive this formal approval process, we're not able to take any steps, which is just pushing this timeline further and further down.
Yes, and I think, as I recall from the meeting minutes, the task that the Common Council asked the Park Board was to do was really to explore whether we were going to go, whether there was to be 1 diamond, 2 diamonds, or to fix what's there. And so while some of this conversation is really great for the design aspect, it's a little more in-depth than what was really tasked of the Park Board. and us this evening. So I just want to bring everyone back to the idea of approving a master plan this evening. And I think from the conversation that I've heard this evening, that I think what I'm hearing is that moving the diamond is definitely the way that, that we're headed. Thank you.
Okay, so great discussion. I think everyone, well, almost everyone spoke. If we could have a roll call vote on the motion on the floor then.
Motion carries 7-1.
Okay, great. We have a couple more items, action items, the accounts payable and payroll. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve the accounts payable and payroll for the term of December 30th through January 12th, December 30th, 2022 through January 12th, 2023 in the amount of $10,590,177.67.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So motion and a second, discussion. Alderman Nichols, did you have discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I did call Director Sackett this afternoon because I noticed lots of property tax refunds in the check ledger, and we are not used to seeing those in the number that we saw them in this check register. So could you just explain why that happened this time around?
Certainly. Basically, for as long as I can remember, we maintained a separate checking account just for property tax refunds. So now I'd have to maintain that separate checking account. It goes through our regular accounts payable now. None of it is a revenue or expenditure to the city, just simply property tax refunds, usually overpayments from a mortgage company, things like that.
So it's not something out of the ordinary, it's just a new practice.
Correct.
A new way of doing something that has always happened.
Correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Sassman, there was a question about that page 6. You want to address that for for Sandra?
I believe these are the new banners for downtown.
So these are replacement banners. They are just to replace the ones that were torn or no longer usable. And this is the same vendor we've used at least 2 or 3 years now.
I think so.
Pardon? Yep, they're exactly the same as always. Yep, the triangular banners, yes. Seeing no other comments, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 2 is the Winnebago County property foreclosure listing. Do we have a motion? Oops, I'm sorry. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion. Could we have Director Schrader go through the recommendations so I don't have to read the giant motion?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So in front of us today, again, is a listing proposed approval for the 2 lots that will be acquired from the Winnebago County based upon their tax foreclosure, including 127 First Street and 1220 Groves Street. Basically, staff did go out and looked around a little bit at a few different realtors within the region, which I believe was called out earlier in the public comment. So Kyle Keogh with First Weber is a realtor primarily out of Oshkosh. One of the things that staff looked for is similar properties and similar listings. So this individual has similar listings within the city of Oshkosh. So what we wanted to kind of hopefully accompany there is that connection, that additional support for potential developers to be building on these lots in other regions and hopefully bring those to Menasha. Kyle also was very professional, provided a market analysis of the sites, did a very thorough report on historical and existing listing processes. So that's basically the reason staff went with the recommendation that we did. The following would be the recommended provisions that would be included within that listing contract. So the listing contract, listing price of $22,900 for each lot. Single-family dwelling be constructed on each lot within 18 months from the date of closing. The city reserves a right, as recorded on the deed, for a right of reversion if permits are not obtained within 18 months of closing. So again, that recommendation number 3 kind of ties into the recommendation number 2. So if we sell the lot actually transfers ownership and they do not take out those permits, they do not move forward with that project. A right of reversion basically means the city has the ability to buy it back. We don't have to buy it back, but we would have the ability to buy that lot back. Moving on, as recorded on the deed again, if a property became tax exempt, the owner shall make an annual payment in the lieu of taxes or a pilot to the city of Menasha in an amount equal to the value of the property multiplied by the tax rate. And lastly, the city shall not make any representations or provide gap coverage at the time of closing. So those are basically standard language that the city of Menasha uses on a lot of closings that we would accompany.
Thank you for that summary. With that, I'll move to approve direct staff to execute a listing contract with Kyle Kehoe and First Weber to professionally list 127 First Street and 1220 Grove Street at a 6% commission fee with the provisions outlined in the memo and explained by Director Schrader.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Rapella. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item M is appointments. There is one this evening. Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'll move for your reappointment of Ray Zielinski to the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission for a term of 1/1/23 to 12/31/26.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Item O is public comment on any matter that was on the agenda this evening.
I guess I'd just like to comment and thank you for all your hard work going into the Jefferson Park Master Plan. And I'm especially appreciative of those that bring us back to center, that this is much more than just baseball or a baseball diamond. It's about a master plan, and that's appreciated. And I know that each and every alderman never forgot that, although at times it seemed like we were really focusing in on only one aspect of it, but it was a good exercise. As far as I'm concerned, it had a good outcome. I'm not a baseball guy, so I really don't have a dog in the fight, but I am a park and rec guy, and that opportunity for those that are interested in what we offer in aggregate to our whole city is very important to me. So baseball is important to me. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Sandra DeBill Taylor, 545 Broad Street. I just wanted to comment that, and kind of a follow-up to what Alderman Tom Grady had mentioned. I have never quite understood with the Jefferson Park Master Plan the phases and what phase was chosen where. Because personally, I would have put the pavilion in phase 1. Because as he had mentioned, the pavilion and the roadway and the things that the people use all the time, I would have wanted to make sure we had the dollars, that those were done right, and then see what money was left over, because I am afraid that we are going to run out. And then we're going to be at another standstill. And I am still very much concerned about the privatization of our parks And I'm going to stand with Alderman Sevenick on his statements, because we kind of had that issue with the kayak launch at one time down by the marina, and when they were given a price, they walked away. And these kind of agreements need to come to the council. That shouldn't be just something agreed on behind by a director, or whatever happened. I don't know what happened back in 2017. But those are agreements that should come before the council, and we should be wary of them. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, if we could have a motion to recess to committees tonight. Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like for us to recess into our committee.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? We stand adjourned at recess to committees.
The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the City of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the mayor's office, 920-967-3608. Contact a city alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.